This is the Fantasy Football Game Plan, where we talk about fantasy football and the NFL.
Good day. Week one down. As of yesterday, some entertaining games over the weekend, that's for sure. And hopefully fantasy did well for you. Did you win? Did you lose? What was the outcome?
Yeah, I won big, in spite of having a couple of guys that I started that didn't really do very much for me. But I have Justin Jefferson and Travis Kelce. And I have Younghoe Koo, who was the number one kicker this week and got me 19 points. So I was the second highest scoring team. I didn't see that coming. I tried to get some other kickers before him, but he was the guy in my queue when I needed a kicker, and he came through big time for me.
I actually had Koo as one of my guys to talk about this week to pick up because of his, what he did last week and what he's done in the years past. Yeah, I won. I won by a very slim margin, 0.3 points. So with Leonard Fournette's last run of the game before they pulled him, he got about 11 or 12 yards, which got me to where I needed to go. And the guy I was playing against, CeeDee Lamb, was not catching any more balls for the rest of the game. So could have gone any way. I snuck away with a win, just barely, but a win's a win. Doesn't really matter what the end score is. At the end of the year, it's just where you sit.
So you started with a kicker, Younghoe Koo. So my suggestion for kickers would be Cade York. We don't want to spend too much time on kickers, but he won the game big time for Cleveland, kicking a huge field goal. And they drafted a kicker, and apparently he's pretty good.
Yeah, and we can move on from kickers because there's no need to talk about all the other people that don't know how to get in between the uprights. So
right.
This week was pretty phenomenal from his field goals. So hey, if you have one of those guys that you're not too happy with, I think Koo and York are good pickups for this week as well.
I would say with Dak Prescott going down, there's going to be a lot of people desperate right now for a QB over the next few weeks. So I've got some suggestions. Maybe we could ping pong back and forth. We'd probably have similar guys. I watched the Monday Nighter last night, and Geno Smith, I didn't think very much of him, but he was okay last night. He had a lot of completions, really high percentage. They weren't downfield throws. I mean, he'll get you a modest score. Don't depend on him to get you a win. But if you don't have Dak Prescott, then I'd take a look at Geno Smith. What do you think?
Yeah, you didn't make my list. One person I would think of would be Cousins because of what we saw over the weekend against Green Bay. The passing attack, the catching attack, actually, from the wide receiver room is just great. So I would suggest that Cousins would be someone to go after.
Well, I would say if I played in a league where Kirk Cousins wasn't drafted, that would be a league that I would try to join immediately. Because with everyone projecting Justin Jefferson to try to win, be the best receiver this year, where do people think the ball will come from? I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, if Kirk Cousins is available, go and get him. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. One guy I'd want to throw in there that I think some people won't have drafted is Carson Wentz. I was not big on him either. Guy threw 4 touchdowns. He's got lots of receiving options. So pick up Carson Wentz on the waivers if you can.
Yeah, that was my next guy I was going to talk about for sure.
I want to throw out maybe Matt Ryan might be available on waivers. So pretty decent quarterback with some options to throw to. So maybe take a look and see if you get Matt Ryan if you lost your starting QB this week. And we'll move on to maybe running backs now. What do you think?
Yeah, love talking about running backs. There's not that many available, kind of get snagged up pretty quickly, but there are some standouts for sure. I think one of the bigger standouts of this weekend was Tennessee's Hilliard. That kind of like saw a lot of pass catching for PPR leagues.
Yeah, I didn't expect Tennessee to be losing to the Giants and have to throw a lot because we know Derrick Henry doesn't catch a lot of passes. So I think I need a bigger sample size on Tennessee before I'm all in on Hilliard. But clearly he is the pass catching back from that team. So if they're going to be behind, I mean, if they're behind to the Giants, then maybe they're going to be behind to a lot of teams. And so that's a sneaky good suggestion, I think. One guy that I was very surprised to see dominate in carries was Darrell Henderson. I thought that Cam Akers was the starter for the Rams, and clearly that's not the case. So I think Darrell Henderson probably could be picked up in a lot of leagues. So he's a guy you want to take a look at, I think.
Jamal Williams from Detroit had a couple of touchdowns on the ground, kind of filled in for Swift's big run plays, kind of capitalized on those goal line crashes. He could not be available in some leagues, but he could be as well too, similar to Henderson, like you suggested.
Yeah, and the same situation happened with the Bears. When they got down to the goal line, they went with Khalil Herbert instead of Montgomery. So if he's going to be the goal line guy, then take a look at Khalil Herbert from the Bears also.
Yeah, he made my list as well too.
Okay, and you got another one? I got one more.
Nope, that's it. Only 3.
Okay, Elijah Mitchell got injured for the 49ers this week. So now Jeff Wilson Jr. looks like he's in line to start for a month if he can stay healthy, because as we see every year with the 49ers, they lose a back a week. So, for this week, Jeff Wilson Jr., he might get hurt, and then it'll be some other guy that we've never heard of. I don't know. But for now, Jeff Wilson Jr. is a good pickup for running backs.
It's not like Baltimore, who could slide in a running back and kind of like not lose a step or a beat.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Mike Davis did nothing there, so Kenyon Drake would be the guy if you're looking for a running back from that team.
Yeah. Receiver, well, there's a couple. I think that are probably still on some waiver wires. I think Robbie Anderson is someone to start with, as it's now seems to be 4 years in a row. This guy never gets picked up on draft day, but then people scramble for him in week 1 or 2, trying to get him on their bench. So Robbie Anderson for sure is probably one of those guys that if you're gonna have to put some money down, maybe try and pick him up, as he was a hot top target for them. Once again, as always, a pretty great fantasy player.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to happen every year with this player. And I think it's important, the point you brought up about fab money, because across the league, there's a lot of people that you could consider for waiver wire pickups. But if you're in a league where you've got fab and you have a budget, you've really got to look at the situation, not just for this week, right? You can't be short-sighted when you're spending fab money. So that's a really good pickup if you are spending fab. Like, he'd be worth going all in on, I think, because he's got a better quarterback now who could throw downfield. He was pretty good last year. He's only going to get better. So I think that's a great suggestion. And then, weirdly enough, I have 2 guys from the same team, which is the Commanders with Carson Wentz. I think Curtis Samuel and Jahn Dotson both looked really good, got a lot of targets. Terry McLaurin's the one. He's going to draw coverage. They're going to throw a lot. And right now, I think both those guys look good. What do you think?
Yeah, I had Samuel as one of my guys. And then Dotson also had a great week. So let's see how that ball gets tossed around. Yeah, because I also had in my tight ends was Thomas as being a tight end to look for, as Wentz seems to be throwing the ball up there as well too. So talk about tight ends later, but just want to throw that in there. If you get 2 from the Commanders, there's also another guy that can catch the ball.
I mean,
line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of receivers you could look at, but again, it's early in the year. We got a long way to go. So let's get a bigger sample size before we start going all in on some of these waiver pickups and people start dumping players that they drafted. We're going to be talking about good receiver pickups right till the end of the season. There's a lot out there, but we're trying to whittle this thing down to like guys that can help you long term as well as short term. So that's all I have for receivers, unless you got more.
That's it.
Okay, so I like that out of all these players, you and I are agreeing on a lot of these, because I didn't know what your list was and you didn't know what mine was, but we're coming up with a lot of common names. So I'm feeling good about these pickups. And I agree with you with the tight end Thomas from Washington. And I think with the injury to Keenan Allen over in the LA Chargers situation that they've got, their tight end is a guy you want to look at, is Gerald Everett. He had a big game. They've got a short week. They're playing Thursday night against the Chiefs. And so I think they're going to continue with what they did in that last game, which is look to Everett a lot.
Yep. I had him on my list as well, too. He seems to be a nice, solid, big target that Herbert is throwing to. So let's see what that exciting game on Thursday is going to turn out to be. It should be pretty high scoring. And hopefully a lot of people are getting fantasy points this Thursday. One of the guys that also made my list, and, kind of an oversight, maybe people picked him up because he's been popular many years, was Taysom Hill, as he's still getting the numbers that he was getting in previous years. So he's classified as a tight end, but he's also classified as a quarterback too. So it's almost like you can get this guy in either one of those two spots. But as a tight end, he's a valuable pickup.
Okay, I was waiting for you to make your last suggestion before I got to the topic of Ty Hill, and so that's who you went to right away. I can't believe we're talking about this guy again. He just is haunting our podcasts, this guy. It's one of those things where, on the one hand, they use him near the goal line. That's great. So he's going to get some scores sometimes. He blocked half the time he was on the field. He wasn't on the field for more than 15 plays. Half of them he blocked. They put him in the red zone. So he's going to be one of those touchdown dependent guys. He's going to win you weeks sometimes, and he's going to kill you other times. Because I think he had one reception, and he had a long run and a touchdown, and that's why he scored well this week. I don't know if you can count on him. I mean, he's a desperation play, I think, week in and week out. If your tight end is on a bye or you're not happy with your guy, I think Taysom Hill is a great guy to look at. But he drives me insane, honestly, and the way they use him drives me nuts. You just can't count on his production.
But he still gets the numbers, so if you need a flex player or you need a tight end spot, maybe put him on your bench, because he seems to get into the end zone, like you said. But
if you don't have a superstar guy, play him, because why not? He might do great. He might get you nothing, but he might do great. Let's see what happens next week. We'll probably talk about this guy again next week.
Or maybe the week after.
Yeah, right. Randomly throughout the season, he'll continue to haunt us.
Halloween would be a good episode to talk about Taysom. Maybe we could be like a good Taysom pass. Another tight end that is also on the board could be Howard from Houston, as he seemed to have catch a couple balls this week, but maybe it was just in desperation.
Well, I don't know. They've got Brevin Jordan, who seems to be their main guy, running more plays, running more routes. But then they threw two passes to O.J. Howard, and they were both touchdowns. So there's a lot of tight ends on that team. I mean, I can't argue against O.J. Howard, but it's real. I need to see some consistency there. I don't think he's the best tight end on that team. But if they're going to target him in the red zone, then yeah.
Let's see what happens. Like you said, it's hard to understand what forecast is going to go through over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's really early in the season, and there's a lot of football to be played, and there's a lot that's going to happen. But we've got to go with the information that we have to this point. And so, here we are. Just a thought that came to my head. It really surprised me with Houston that Dameon Pierce wasn't their featured guy, and that they seem to like Rex Burkhead a lot more. I don't know why. They had a lead. They had like a 17-point lead at one point. They should have brought Pierce in, run the game, run the clock, run the timeout, run the time off the clock. They get the easy win if they do that. They did not. And I mean, Burkhead, sure, pass protection, he catches balls, but Pierce is going to be your superstar back, and this would have been a perfect game script to play him, and they like Burkhead better, I guess.
Pick up Burkhead if he's not available in the league. Any comments on defense before we close out this week 1 episode?
Surprisingly, I don't know if it was the weather, probably was the Bears beating up on San Francisco. Their Bears defense, they had lost their superstar pass rusher, Mack. I didn't think they were going to be very good. They were very good. Keep an eye on them if you're desperate. I would play them. They looked not bad. I also like the Vikings pass rush. I think the Vikings defense is better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and the secondary has always been solid too. Interesting to put out there is Miami also had a good week, so let's see if that continues.
Yeah, I mean, they were playing New England, who apparently don't know anything about running the football or throwing it, which doesn't leave you much else. So let's see.
It doesn't leave you much else when you have a defensive guy as your offensive coordinator.
I don't know what to say. I'm a Patriots fan. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. I have no idea what they're doing. They don't look like they know what they're doing. It's going to be a long year. I have zero Patriots. I mean, their defense is okay, but if their offense is going to look like that, their defense is going to be on the field a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's wrap this one up. Thursday night is coming. Waiver wire's got to be in by the end of either today for people or Wednesday. Closing out, we're going to just list some of the top players that we should go after. And a lot of our lists were the same this week. So let's see if this continuity keeps going week after week.
Yeah. So I'll rattle off some names here then. It's a good suggestion. So we got Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Geno Smith, Darrell Henderson, Khalil Herbert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Jamal Williams, Curtis Samuel, Jahn Dotson, Robbie Anderson. We both highly recommend. For kickers, we had Cade York and Younghoe Koo. And I have the Bears and Vikings D, and you said Miami. Did I leave anyone out?
Everett, tight end.
Everett, the tight end. Thank you. Okay, those are your top. I did leave him out. That probably wasn't by accident, but that was your guy. So let's put him in there. Taysom Hill.
Right on, Sean. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk. Good luck this week in fantasy as Sunday comes up.
Hey, might be the last time I'm able to say this, but we're both undefeated in fantasy this season. So way to go, coach, and let's keep it going.
Take care.
Thanks for watching the Fantasy Football Game Plan podcast. Need coaching on your lineup? Drop us a line and we'll discuss your dilemma.